did you go? Have you gone? Are you going? These are three similar but different questions. Question forms can be confusing in English. When do you put do or did? When do you put have? When do you use be? The good news is there are only two ways to make questions in English. Our first way is to use inversion. And the second way is to use do, does, or did. These are your only two choices, so you need to learn when to use which. So first we're going to talk about inversion. This is the most common way to make questions in English. So what does inversion mean? It means to switch the order of the subject and the first verb. So, in the case of he is home, we would use inversion to make that question. So we start with a sentence and we change it to a question. So our subject is he and our first verb is. We will switch the order. And we have our question. Let's look at a little bit more complicated example. She has been to Greece. The subject is she, and we want our first verb. So in this present perfect verb, the very first one is has. So we're going to switch that one. Has she been to Greece? The capital. So that's how we make inversion. So there are just three rules for when to use inversion. Rule number 1. If the verb starts with be, that means is, am, was, or were, you will use inversion. So in our first example here, she is going to the party. We have a present progressive verb, and it starts with a be verb, is. We will use inversion. Is she going to the party? Remember to take away your capital here. And that's our question. In our second example, they were leaving. We have were, a past form of be. So again, you will use inversion. Were they leaving? Rule number 2. If the verb tense uses have, has, or had as a helping verb, use inversion. So if you think about what you know about verb tenses, when do we use has, have, or had as a helping verb? These are going to be in your perfect verbs. Present perfect progressive, past perfect progressive. Or you can just remember, when you see have as a helping verb, use inversion. So here's my verb in my first sentence. I have been driving to work this week. My main verb is drive, but have is helping to make this verb tense. So I'm going to use inversion with have. Have I been driving to work this week? Seems funny if I can't remember the answer to that, but maybe that's the case. In my second example, here's my verb tense. My verb is had seen. So see is my main verb, and had is my helping verb. I have in the helping verb position, so I will use inversion. had he seen that movie? That brings us to rule number 3. Does the verb start with a modal? Remember the modal verbs can, could, will, would, might, should, may, shall. In the case of a verb that starts with a modal, again, you will use inversion. So here is my verb, can go. I will switch my first verb and my subject. Can they go at 8? In my second example, here's my verb, will leave. I'm going to switch my modal with my subject here, and the question becomes, will they leave? So to recap our part 1, you use inversion with be verbs. You use inversion when you have, has, or had as a helping verb, and you use inversion with modals. Easy enough, right? So that brings us to part 2. Do, does, and did. These are not difficult to use, but there are some special things that you need to keep in mind. We use do, does, and did with simple present or simple past verbs, because those are the only verbs where you don't have be, you don't have, and you don't have a modal. For example, I want a new car. Here I have simple present, so I'm going to say, do I want a new car? I'm asking myself. In this case, they left without their jackets. Here's my verb in the simple past, so I will say, did they leave their jackets? So let's go over the 2 important rules for do, does, and did. Rule number 1, use do and does for simple present tense questions. Do and does are in the present tense. So, you want a new car. This is in present tense. So my question will say, do you want a new car? They want a new car. Same thing. I have a present tense question. Do they want a new car? 2 things to look out for with this rule. Remember, this is the rule for simple present tense questions when the verb is not be. When the verb is be, we have to go back to our very first rule. And remember, with be verbs, you use inversion. So sometimes when we're using simple present, we're using a be verb. In that case, we use inversion. Is that car new? So let's start our special cases. Now, another thing we have to remember is with our third person singular verbs. So the he wants, she wants, it wants. When we study verb tenses, we need to remember to add that S to the verb. We have also something important to remember with the question. In this case, we are going to use does. Does he want a new car? Notice, because we have the S here in the sentence, we put the S here in the question. But we also need to remember to take away the S in our main verb. So we don't say, does he wants? No. too many S's. We say, does he want a new car? So let's add a little rule here to remember. With the he, she, it form of the verb, use does in the question, and put the verb in base form. What do I mean by base form? Just like I said, here there's no S, there's no ED, the simple form of the verb. Our last rule for do, does, and did. Now we're looking at did. Use did for questions in the simple past tense when the verb is not be. So did is the past tense question form. She ate lunch is our example, and we are going to make the question, did she eat lunch? Our verb here is in the past tense, and so we use did. We called last week. Again, the verb's in the past tense, so we will use did. Did we call last week? I can't remember. Now notice, we have a special rule here to remember. When you use did, make sure to change that main verb to base form. So in this question, my past tense is here, did. Did she eat lunch? A very common mistake people will make is they will say, did she eat lunch? This is the wrong question. I have the past tense here. I don't want to use another past tense here. So let's cross that out. Let's look at this example. We called last week. And our question, did we call last week? The common mistake people might make is did we called last week? But this is too much past tense. We have our did, so we don't want to use past tense here. We want to use base form, call. So this is also a mistake. And the other thing we have to look out for one more time is when our simple past tense is a be verb. Sometimes we use be in past tense. In that case, we will not use did. We'll go back to that first rule one more time, and we'll say, was he late? We always use inversion for be verbs. Always, always, always. They were hungry, again, past tense be, we'll say, were they hungry? So those are all of our rules to make our questions. With inversion, we have to remember. We use inversion with be when we have as a helping verb and our modal verbs. We use do, does, or did in all other situations. These are simple present and simple past verbs without be. So I hope you find that helpful, and good luck making questions in English.